we would request everybody to be seated by 9:15. The Honorable Minister will be gracing the stage at around 9:30. We would request everybody to be at least seated before the Honorable Minister arrives. And we request everybody to kindly carry and preserve the delegate badges which you have received today, and carry them with you tomorrow morning, because tomorrow we are not having a separate registration. It's a carryover event, and the same batches will be working for tomorrow. And now for this session, which is a session on 6G strategy. I would invite our chair for the session, Shri Bharat Bhatia ji, President IAFI. May I invite you, sir, to take your place on the stage. Our keynote presenters, Dr. Stuart Cook, Chair GSA Global Spectrum Team, Dr. Hacken Olsen, he's the Director at Ericsson Group Function and Vice Chair WPST. Once again, a warm welcome, sir. And after the two keynote presentations, we will have a panel discussion. I invite our eminent panelists, Shri Arun Agarwal, DDT Radio, TEC, Shri Sendil Devar, 5G India Forum, 5GIF, and Dr. Puneet Rathore, Lead Technical Standards, Qualcomm. I also invite Shri H.C. Soni, Joint Secretary General and Treasurer, IAFI, to kindly grace the stage. So I now hand over to our session chair, Shri Bharat Bhatia ji, President IAFI, for the opening remarks and to kindly carry forward the proceedings of the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. We are at the last session of the day. Thank you all for staying back. I think we still have a almost full room. This is, I think, one of the most important sessions of the day, because this is where we get into the next generation. We have been talking about 5G, we have been talking about the spectrum, but I think this is first time we are actually going to look at the 6G, both spectrum and the vision. And this is an area which is very important for the future of India. In the ITU, if you recall, there are various generations of mobile communications. Everybody knows 1G, 2G, 3G. But in the ITU, we have a term called IMT, International Mobile Telecommunications. And the IMT, which started first with IMT 2000, way back in 2000, and the work on that started almost 10 years before that. Initial name for that, perhaps most people may not know, was something called Future Public Land Mobile Telecom Service, FPLMTS, a very tongue twister. But that was where it all started. And from there onward, we had the IMT 2000 as the, what we now know as 3G. Then we have the IMT Advanced and IMT 2020, which is the 5G, which is what is being rolled out currently in the country. And the next generation, as Dr. Hakan mentioned in the morning, in the last meeting of Working Party 5D, it has been agreed that the name for the next generation of mobile technology, which people generally call as 6G, will be IMT-2030. And I'm very happy and proud to say that this was one of the proposals that IAFI made to Working Party 5D to rename, and in the last meeting, our proposal was accepted, and finally, in the resolution 56, naming of IMT 2030 was agreed. So, now that the naming is kind of agreed, there are two main things that are going in the ITU on this. One was, what are the technology trends that are happening to move towards the next generation of mobile technology? So there is a report that ITU has already prepared on technology trends. And the second, and which is more important, is a recommendation being developed on the vision for the next generation, vision for 6G, which we will call as a recommendation for IMT 2030. And that recommendation will actually drive the entire development process towards the 6G over the next 7-8 years until it becomes available to the public in around 2030 time frame. So with that opening remark, we have got two excellent presenters, keynote presentations. And let me again start with Dr. Stuart Cook here. He already spoke in the morning on the WRC. So I would now call upon him to talk about the 6G technology and spectrum strategy. And we already introduced you, Dr. Stuart, so please over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, BB, once again. I said good morning in the morning, good afternoon in the afternoon, and I think maybe I should say good evening to everybody now. It's almost evening time. This is the really fun bit, right, where we get to talk about the next generation. This is the bit I really enjoy. As BB mentioned, you know, that vision where we let the technology folks in our companies, the technology people in the academia, in the research institutes, we let them loose and to come up with our next vision for the next 10 or 20 years. And so, you know about the GSA, you've seen that slide before. I talked about looking back to look forward. BB mentioned FPL-MTS. That was back in 1992 at the World Radio Conference. That first chunk of spectrum at 2 gigahertz was identified. If you talk to the people at the World Radio Conference that was in 1992, half of the regulators that were there will tell you they never thought we would get mobile working at 2 gigahertz. There was no chance you'll get mobile working at 2 gigahertz. But they identified the spectrum, and then, hey presto, off we went with the first implementation of what became IMT. And so, as I said this morning, that global harmonization of spectrum, of standards, of timing, it's really important that we don't forget that as we look forward into the future. I'm going to go very quickly through this. This is the 5G devices. You'll see how we're doing in terms of implementing that IMT 5G vision. The slides will be available for you to look at later on. This is the predictions on growth of traffic. You'll see fixed wireless access is a very interesting use case for 5G IMT technology. A wireless-like fiber connectivity to homes and enterprises, as well as verticals, IoT, and of course, people. In terms of the 5G deployments compared to 4G over a similar time frame, 5G is more accelerated than 4G was over a similar time frame. Let's look back. 1G we talked about. Then we had 2G, text, voice, we know all about this, moving into 3G, into 4G, and now 5G. You can see the evolution and development of the technology. And then with 6G, what does that mean? What is the vision in the ITU coming up with? Extreme connectivity is one of the aspects that's being discussed in the vision in the ITU. An immersive augmented experience is another that you'll find written throughout the vision recommendation. And so you will see approximately every 10 to 15 years we have a new generation. We've talked about this before. We've talked about low bands, mid bands, and high bands. low bands, great coverage outside of the urban areas, but also providing a continuity of experience, deep indoor penetration. Speakers have talked about mid-band, a great combination of coverage and capacity. And then the millimeter wave, the high bands, a hot zone type of experience. In addition, fixed wireless access is one option for millimeter wave. And that, I think, will continue as we move into 6G. We've got those initial deployments we talked about. We talked about the expansion bands. But now let's begin to think about planning for the very longer term with 6G. Around the year 2030 and onwards for those initial 6G deployments. And we all know that spectrum takes a long time to discuss and get the regulations in place, get that global consensus and harmonization wherever we can. So now is the right time to begin those discussions. I don't have time to go through this in detail. These are just some of the initial launch bands and expansion bands. So this is the timeline looking backwards. 15 years for 3G, 8 or 10 years for 4G. And so we believe as an industry that around 10 years is a reasonable estimate as to how long it will take between starting the vision and technology trends that BB talked about to finally delivering the standards and specifications and initial deployments. So that's how we get to that 10-year, 2030 time frame. That's looking backwards to look forwards. Harkin will talk about this in more detail in his role as Vice Chair of Working Party 5D. It shows the detailed timeline within the ITU. But the point here is this is 3GPP in cooperation with the ITU developing the detailed specifications and standards. And so, what about spectrum then? And I can see when I give this presentation to other audiences, you know, the regulators, they start shuffling in the room and going, oh, please, no more spectrum. Please, don't ask for any more spectrum. But then if you look back, you look at the traffic growths, the forecasts, the services, the vision, it's really very clear that we have to reuse what's there already. Let's be very clear, in terms of that 6G vision, the technology must be designed to use the existing IMT spectrum, reuse that wherever possible. But we would also suggest that now is the right time to begin that conversation around additional new spectrum to support those really wideband services and growth. So in addition to the reuse of the existing spectrum, we would suggest that we begin to have that conversation among the regulators, the government, the industry, the academia, etc., on are there any bands within the 7 to 24 gigahertz range, as an example. Are there any bands within that range that could be used for 6G deployments? Is there any spectrum there that we could share with to enable 6G to be deployed, sharing on a time basis or a geographic basis, on an altitude basis? Is there anywhere within 7 to 24 gigahertz that we could share? The lower within that range, the better in terms of coverage, propagation, reusing the existing infrastructure assets. So 7 to 24 is what we've called that essential range. This is the key focus for 6G spectrum IMT 2030. But also Complementing that, a lot of research now going on into the sub-terahertz frequency range. Are there any bands within the sub-terahertz range that could be made available for really wide band 6G services? Any bands within there that we could share with, again, on a time, geographic, maybe altitude basis? So the essential range in terms of new spectrum, anything between 7 to 24 gigahertz. The lower, the better within that range, complemented by the sub-terahertz spectrum. And so, as an industry association, we believe now is the right time to begin those conversations, and we would advocate that we have an agenda item at the World Radio Conference in 27 to study potential frequency bands within this range, particularly 7 to 24, the lower the better. And so this gives an idea of some of the activities underway around the world. You'll see some of those leading countries beginning or have invested significant amounts of money into the research. These are not exclusive lists, just some examples from the US, Europe, Japan, Korea, India, China. I was reading about initiatives within the Middle East recently. And so, as we look forward, it's that cooperation and interaction at the international level that's also very important. Very well established links among some of these groups, and so I would urge an international outreach activity as well as a national activity around 6G. So finally, in summary, the research, that's accelerating globally. Very detailed, lots of money from some of those leading governments, administrations, industry going into 6G. The vision is well underway. That fun bit about thinking about the future. What is it we want IMT 2030 to do? What are some of the trends and the capabilities? What's our vision globally for that? Let's target commercialization around 2030 onwards. It's the combination of frequency bands, low, mid, high, possibly extremely high with sub-terahertz. Let's reuse what we have already. It's a very clear message from the regulators, but we would like to consider whether there's any additional spectrum within 7 to 24 and sub-terahertz, any bands within there. And I personally would encourage both a national strategy but also an international dialogue. It's really very important that looking forward in the industry, in the academia, the government, within certain leading countries, have these well-established links in place. And does India want to be part of that? I hope so. And so harmonization, spectrum, global standards, timing, really important. And so, of course, we would propose an agenda item for the WRC. We would hope that over time, in the next 6 to 9 months, maybe the community within this country will support that proposal. The tricky thing is, which bands do we include for study within that agenda item? And that's a discussion to be had over the next 9 or so months. And so as GSA, we're here to support any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I think very well summarized in terms of how the spectrum roadmap is evolving, both in terms of the 5G and 6G. And I think really you focused well on the 2 key bands that are being considered for further studies, and hopefully we'll have further discussion on that. Next, I'm happy to invite Dr. Håkan Olsen Director at the Ericsson Group, for this 5D process for 6G and how it is unfolding. He is actually driving that process within Working Party 5D. So over to you, Hakan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bibi, for that introduction. As I said in the morning, I'm from Tamil Nadu. And I can promise you that it didn't take me very long time from touchdown in New Delhi airport, Indira Gandhi, until I was down at the Bhavan restaurant down on Jampat Road here, enjoying masala dosa, idli, vadai with sambar, rombanala. So on that first slide, we showed that there is something growing, right? There's something growing. What is it? We are working on that in Working Party 5D. And we have a vision and we have a process. Soon we have a vision and the process is there already. We are looking back, if we look backwards to what happened in the 5G era, in IMT 2020, we had the phases in developing the vision. It started with around 2 years, 2 to 3 years for the definition phase. We had the requirement phase, 2 years. We had 1 to 2 years for the development of the technologies outside of ITU. And then we had 2 years of the evaluation and deciding on the outcome of the technologies of the 5G IMT 2020. So we decided to reuse this process also for 6G and for IMT 2030. However, I would like to point out that now we are 2 years earlier than we were at that time to implementation. So we have a longer time span from actually approving the recommendation of the vision until we start the implementation. So we need to be thinking a little bit more about having some more open-minded aspects when we are discussing the vision and later on the requirements. So now we have we have done the technology trends. We are working on the vision. We are working also on the sub-terahertz possibilities by using IMT technologies. And we have started on the modifications of the resolution 56, as I mentioned in the morning, and on the 65, which is the naming and the process, respectively. So then we will have the requirements phase, almost twice as long as in the previous generation. Therefore, we have some possibilities to perhaps not be so detailed in the vision recommendation as we were for 5G. And then we have a similar schedule, and to have the early 2029, the deadline for submissions of the technologies. The 6G technologies that are to be included into the final recommendation scheduled for mid-2030. So this is the previous generations, and this is the end result. This is the end result of 8 to 10 years of work with around 10 deliverables to be produced. And these recommendations, they then include the detailed radio interface specifications of IMT. As was mentioned here earlier, we started with, not with IMT, but with FPL-MTS. And it was in the mid-80s this work started. And we have two deliverables for the IMT 2000 when it comes to vision. And then the final one was done in 1997. And then we had the IMT Advanced coming up, and it was a very famous Venn diagram that we developed. For the 5G, I think we were even better. We had the 3 usage scenarios established, and we had the spider web diagram. These were shown in every conference. And I think on this, ITU did a fabulous job, actually, to create this vision. So we need something even better now for the vision that goes into next year's approval. We need to keep up the good spirit and the good work that we have done previously. And it's difficult. This is the status of the vision recommendation out of the meeting in October. There is progress, but it's slow progress. We're still working on the user scenarios. And there's a number of ideas and a number of views on what should be there and what it should say. And even less progress actually on the capabilities. But the user scenarios are the key, for the vision recommendation. And therefore, we now have a correspondence group established to try to conclude on that part for the next meeting, which is a key meeting, because at that one we have to elevate the current version of the working document to a preliminary draft new recommendation. So this is a bit to explain what we are working on at the moment. As you can see, there's ideas to start from the 5G but expand it further. And the user scenarios would then be expanded. There are new capabilities beyond communications that is being discussed. And now we are including also discussions on sustainability, efficiency, and extended coverage. So it will be new usage of radio networks into novel applications. And as you can see, there's a number of various ideas that is under the discussion in the vision recommendation from all over the world, from various organizations and from various countries. India is here with an idea under discussion, and also we need to have something about the evolution figures going from the 5G. How do we enter into the 6G era and to IMT 2030? Then we have the capabilities. We have legacy capabilities that we will continue with from 5G, but then there are additional capabilities that is being proposed. And some have agreed descriptions, but some are having difficulties to agree on what we mean and what the description should be in the recommendation. And if you look on the proposed target for research or target for values, it's even wider. And I think it will be difficult to agree on the number of exact numbers or values on these different capabilities. But on the other hand, it's not so important, as I mentioned, since we have doubled the time to really discuss and think about the performance requirements in 2 years instead of 1 year. I think we can shift a little bit of the work from the vision to the actual requirements report. And then also now, my colleague here, Stuart, he has already mentioned this, but key is really to be able to reuse existing spectrum and to expand on new additional frequency bands. Not all even if there's certain amount of INT spectrum that has already been identified. It's not available in all countries, all the ranges that has been identified. We need to have additional spectrum identified, especially in the mid-band, which will be a key range for capacity and coverage also in the future. And there is this range 7 to 24 gigahertz that has not been studied before. And already now, today, around 9 gigahertz of spectrum in that range, 7 to 24, is already allocated to a primary allocation of mobile. So it should be possible to find some ranges in there for mobile. Then we also have the sub-terahertz range as discussed that we see as a complementary opportunity for 6G. The agenda item that is needed then to be established at WRC 23 to study it for 4 years. And this will then be the first step and to an ecosystem for 6G or IMT 2030. And it fits very well to the plan that we have to finalize the recommendation in year 2030. So it goes well together. Then if we look on the situation in Asia Pacific, we have the APT organization, which is one of the regional organizations recognized by ITU. And to have an agenda item agreed first as a preliminary APT common proposal, and then later on become an APT common proposal, requires 25% of the APT members to agree and not to be opposed by more than 50% of those countries that support it. This means that we need to have 10 countries in minimum to support such an agenda item out from the APG 23-6 meeting in August. And not more than 5 countries to oppose this idea. So we need to work hard, all of us, and we hope for the support of India in this work to establish and to find those 10 countries that can support this new agenda item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hakan. I think you very clearly laid down the roadmap, particularly how the 5D in the past has developed the vision recommendation and how going forward for IMT 2030 and the time that it will take to develop not only the vision recommendation but the requirement phase and then the evaluation phase and finally certifying the technology as IMT 2030 certified 6G technology. So, and thanks for that, and also summarizing with spectrum and reminding people that we need to get a PSCP out from the APT if we really want to have an agenda for WRC 27 to look at the spectrum. Actually, there has not been any conference that I recall since '92 that IMT spectrum has not been on the agenda. So clearly we need to have an IMT agenda on WRC 27. So let's work towards that. Now I'm going to request Shri Arun Agarwal, he is the DDG Radio in the TEC, to make some initial comments, and then we will go into a Q&A section. But Arunji, over to you for some initial remarks on what do you think, how 6G is unfolding.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak at this forum. Now, the two presenters have given a very good overview of 6G and other activities. I would like to mention about the action taken in India from the government side in this regard We know that 5G was launched in October this year, and it was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister. As of now, about 23,000 base stations have been installed of 5G in about 50 cities. And this is a very good pace at which it is being rolled out. For 6G also, the government has taken advance action. The task forces were constituted in January in this year, and they are giving their report. A vision document is also in the works, and we believe that, I hope that it will be released shortly. Secondly, considering the importance of terahertz band, now the discussions are undergoing with industry and academia for setting up a test bed for terahertz. There is already a test bed in IIT Chennai of 5G, which is very comprehensive and provides integrated testing facility. So advanced action has been taken for this 6G. Secondly, Senior DDG Telecom Engineering Center, he is the chairperson of the NSG5, National Study Group 5, which includes WP5D, and this group looks after the 6G activities also. So from Indian side, we are making contribution to ITUR WP5D, and they have been accepted, and they have been incorporated also. Now, regarding 6G, there are some specific capabilities of 6G or IMT 2030 that I would like to mention. Apart from capacity, coverage, speed, all these things which are present in 5G also, like AI, integration of artificial intelligence, computation, and sensing capabilities, these are very important. But apart from it, one of the most important things is sustainability. Now, we all know that the presidency of the G20 has come to India, and at this G20 event, or during this year, one of the most important items is circular economy. Now, the vision document of the ITUR mentions multiple times about the sustainability, which means net zero emission. It includes a longer life of the devices and equipment, less consumption of efficiency, use of less hazardous elements for production, as well as safe disposal. The government of India has also come out with extended responsibility of producers for collection of the sold devices. So the sustainability is also a very important feature. I believe that we are already moving forward in India and all the stakeholders are contributing to it. I also request that the stakeholders, from academia industry may also contribute to the NSG5, which is coordinating for this IMT systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arunji. Yes, I think the role of NSG is very important, and I think all of us participate in those meetings and try to make sure that India's views are projected in the Working Party 5D. Now, next I have with me Dr. Sandil Devar from 5G India Forum, and let me request him to make some initial remarks before we go into Q&A. Sandil, over to you.
Thank you. Hello. So we have all the seasoned experts here, starting from IMT 2000, IMT Advanced, and IMT 2020. And 5GIF had an opportunity to contribute to the IMT 2020 evaluation. At least we were able to evaluate most of the candidate technologies. We got to learn about the process at ITU. And as a industry forum, the industry members within India, we try to give the right inputs well ahead of time, so that as an administration, when we want to be prepared and take a position in 5D, especially on the technical matters, I think we need to do a lot of preparations before we do it. And especially when DOT announced about the technology innovation group for 6G, one of the important task forces we believe was the Spectrum Task Force. And I think it's the right time that we start looking and not just doing an R&D which is independent, but also to see that what exactly are the assets that we have in the spectrum, looking at the two bands, ranges 7 to 24, as well as the sub-terahertz, which was brought up by GSA. And we brought this attention, especially instead of waiting till WRC 23 makes an agenda, as well as WRC 27 does a study, I think at a national level, all the stakeholders also need to get together and see that what are those current usages and how do we plan to use that spectrum efficiently, even if the spectrum is identified, like what Dr. Hakan mentioned, that even if the spectrum is identified for IMT by different countries or different regions, but when it comes to a national decision, are we able to use the entire identified spectrum? For example, today in 2600, we get to use only 40 megahertz of the spectrum. When we talk about 3300 to 3600, we still have issues at national level that we need to address before we use it. I think it's time we also prepare, when we prepare for the spectrum strategy for 6G, we also look into those aspects. Are there any decisions that to be done at national level? Can we do the homework also, along with the sharing studies that we do at, for the WRC studies? I think those are a few things that I think we should take note also. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandil. Yes, I think looking at the existing spectrum also is very critical. And I think in that sense, it also reminds me that we have not in India looked at the L band, which was identified some time back. And there is some precious spectrum there. And the one I mentioned before, 4.4 to 5 gigahertz, that's another spectrum. I mean, there is spectrum which are already available, identified in the 3GPP that could possibly be looked at. I now request Dr. Puneet Rathod. He has already spoken on a number of topics. But I think I want him to focus mainly on that if we were to think of 7 to 24 as a range for an agenda item at WRC 27, what are the key challenges that you see in terms of APT common proposal for that kind of a band? So, Puneet.
Thank you. Thank you for this specific question, and I think maybe I'll try to go a little bit back into, say, the agenda item history, and a lot of people, at least on this panel, have way more experience going all the way back to 1992, and which was the first IMT identification. And if we look at the sequence of different IMT identifications in subsequent WRCs, I believe WRC 19 was unique in the sense that it had very specific frequency ranges, part of the agenda item for IMT. Previous to that, it was about identifying or at least looking for an adequate spectrum or any spectrum which can further expand the scope of IMT into new possible spectrum. And then the scope which was put up to the WRC was, can we locate such a spectrum and then identify that spectrum? So when we look at this range 7 to 24, if we focus the energy in trying to identify specific sub-ranges, then we are already doing some of that work which the WRCs in 92, 12, 15 did as part of their study to look at and identify that specific frequency. So while a lot of colleagues here on the panels did speak about incumbents, mobile co-primary already existing in a lot of these bands, and then also the willingness to coexist. So one of the possible approaches could also be that we look at that entire band as a possibility that can we locate an adequate or a good amount of spectrum where coexistence is possible, and then opportunities to identify IMT in that band. And that may also align with even the national priorities which are saying that we do want to be early in 6G, possibly by 2030. So if we are able to have that early pre-work, as Dr. Sandil just mentioned, if we are able to have that early pre-work, have a certain subset of frequencies, have certain priorities in place, have certain understanding that these are the bands which are possibly candidates, it will allow our own domestic ecosystem to be ready early on, and then have that agenda in 23 for a possible identification in 27 for an ecosystem to be ready in 30.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that just gives us adequate time at least to prepare for the coming APG and at least have some initial discussions where possibly either a national position or at least an initial thought could be developed before we go to the next APG meeting. One of the areas, Dr. Hakan, that you mentioned about was this vision recommendation that is happening. And I know one of the things that has been kind of holding it back is that we don't have an agreed figure. In every generation of the technology, we had a figure, a substantive figure, which indicated whether it was a quadrilateral or a triangle, or the triangle was very famous last generation. Do you see, is there a possibility of coming to a kind of an agreement on the figure at this coming meeting of Working Party 5D? And what do you think is the is the way forward on that?
Well, thank you, Bibi. That's a tricky question. But I really hope that we can come to an agreement on this figure. I think we are on the good way. We have this hexagon style with the various corners. We have the 3 corners from the 5G with the critical communications, the massive communications, and we have the immersive communications now, more or less agreed. Then we need to just to articulate the other corners with how to use the sensing that was mentioned, and also the artificial intelligence in some way or the other. And that would then fill up the other corners of this hexagon that we are currently discussing. And then if we can have some nice visual way of illustrating the evolution from 5G to 6G, I think we are there. But it must be clear and liked by everyone, so that we see the same promotion for IMT 2030 as we saw in the conferences for IMT 2020 prior to the WRC 19 and prior to the finalization of IMT 2020.
Thank you. And yeah, I think that is the key, suppose, perhaps for the next 5D meeting to at least reach to some agreement. Before I ask some questions from the audience, I just wanted one more thought, maybe everybody in the panel could talk about it, is that when you talk to a layman, what do you say, what is 6G? We know when we talk about 5G, we say, oh, there's this rotating circle which will stop, which will not keep on rotating all the time. When we go to 5G, so, okay, done. When we go to 6G, what is it that we can tell a layman that 6G is going to do? Stuart, anybody?
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? So if I continue my theme, BB, looking back to look forward 10, 15 years in advance of 4G, could we really say what 4G was? Could we really say what 5G was? I'll have a guess, and that's immersive augmented reality. So if you look at what the younger people and the vertical industries with their experiences, with their different terminals, the metaverse, all of that kind of stuff, I think it's about enabling that. I would say there's a continuing theme. Mobile broadband has been very continuous through the generations. and we've evolved to add verticals and what have you with 5G. But maybe it's the immersive element that might be part of 6G. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, interesting questions. I think there are two takeaways from the previous presentation, I think, which will try to help the thought process. One is the presentation from Dr. Hakan, where the vision document itself talks about the way we are splitting the usage scenarios. One is communication-based usage scenarios, and the one is beyond communication. I think beyond communication is one set of usage scenarios we think is going to be a critical way we are going to use 6G, like immersive communications or maybe sitting always in the digital world or something like that, right? So I think beyond communication, using 6G for beyond communication is one such cases where we are going to see it. So it's a new kind of experience we expect that we'll do it. And to add to that, we also saw one of the slide from Stuart is that more than 50% of the devices that are 5G capable today are not just mobile. There are different form factors that we are already seeing with 5G itself. I think with 6G, we might be able to see even more devices and different form factors in which this 6G modem will get included. I think that's how we can see how future would look like with 6G device. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? Anybody? Yes, please, there. Yeah. 1 minute, Dr. Kishore. I'll come back to you. No, I'll go piche de dijiye.
My question to esteemed guests like from UK and this one from Ericsson. Orthogonal time frequency modulation technique is being confirmed as the modulation technique for 6G. Is it a confirmed thing or something else is going to come after? OFTS, orthogonal frequency time, this one is the modulation technique that has been framed for 6G. Is it going to be standardized or something else will come out? That is my first question. The second question, what is the change in the core network will happen in 6G? If you take 5G, there is network slicing has happened where SDN and NFV concept is implemented to make the latency minimum, less than 1 millisecond. So what is the throw light on the core network in the case of 6G? Since you are there in the footprint and making the specification and all this. Hope I am clear in my asked question.
So I think two questions. One, whether the orthogonal multiplexing will continue or it will be a totally new.
Orthogonal frequency time, OFTS it is. That is what is framed by the 3GPP.
Or there will be a new
Some
kind
other
of.
thing will come up.
And secondly, whether.
Is what is the reflection on the core network? You have got network slicing happening in 5G to make the latency minimal, less than 1 millisecond, using the SDN and NFV concept. What does that happen in the 6G code?
Okay, thank you. I think Sandel is going to respond.
Thank you. Though I was wearing a 5G IF hat, I can put it aside for time being. So if you look at the slides, what Dr. Hakan mentioned and from the ITU timeline, the performance requirement will start from around 2024 or 25. And then the vision itself has still wide ranges of requirements, starting from the data rate from 100 Gbps to all the way, I think, 1 Tbps. I would say it is too early for 3GPP to start even talking about it. I think once we have some glimpse about the performance requirement that ITU will start, and then we'll start saying whether the requirements impacts how we design the core network or not. Or should we start looking at what bands are being identified for 6G, is 7 to 24, do we have to look at new waveforms? I think that will be part of the study item that we will start once we start seeing that performance requirements getting developed. So at this point, I would say it is too early. Probably it might be happening in some research labs in all of the companies who are looking at, but we are all looking at what frequency ranges we are looking 6G to operate. I think that will guide us some idea. Maybe it helps. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, sir. Namaskar. May I ask a question?
1 minute.
Okay. Maybe let me add one more element to this, which is I'll focus only on the new report, one of the reports that Dr. Hakan just mentioned, which is the sub-terahertz report. And that report captures several of the technology enablers that can make such a frequency range possible. And a few of those are new semiconductor technologies, so which is looking probably beyond the existing CMOS technologies as well, including additional parts, which is like new antenna technologies. And there we are looking at things like ultra-massive MIMO, intelligent reflective surfaces, and so there are, even from the implementation point of view, we are looking at very different ways of imagining and using the network itself, including all the way from the silicon to the antenna elements, and then obviously, like everybody mentioned, we are very early in the timeline. We are yet to crystallize the performance requirements, and then it will eventually emerge into how the network architecture itself looks like.
Kishore ji?
Okay, sir, may I ask question?
1 minute, 1 minute. It's here.
So, I like to talk about sustainability. It's a buzzword everybody loves to talk about. And I remember I had the fortune of attending the Working Party 5G workshop in June in Geneva. And I had raised this point that we should have it was included. But today I could note the capabilities under sustainability are still not being this thing. And I was happy to hear what Mr. Arun mentioned about that. We are talking about circularity and all that. But now, on one end, we are talking about all these technology, 5G and even 6G with lot of capabilities which need a lot of compute. We are talking autonomous networks, infrastructure. We are talking about metaverse. So much of compute, so much of communication capability, throughput and all that. It's not power guzzlers we are talking. Is it not a dichotomy that we are talking power guzzling on one end, we are gung-ho on that, and other end we talk about sustainability and circularity? How will we be able to create a right kind of a balance between these two? That is the real challenge that we should give ourselves, and maybe out of the hexagon, one of the corners should be sustainability or whatever. I would like to hear your comments. And can we really have 6G sustainable, truly, comprehensively? Any thoughts?
Somebody? No? Oh. Vikram wants to add to the question.
To your point about, with each technology, with 5G particularly, the cost of producing a gigabyte of data with X amount of watts of power was substantially brought down. And then when you apply 5G technologies, so you have to look at it in its entirety, that it has actually increased the efficiency of how you work. With that, you spend some more power in the 5G overall network, but the services enable you to overall reduce your carbon footprint. And similarly will be the case with 6G. For example, the way you have changed transportation, right? Or the way UPI, for example, it makes life more efficient. So as a country or as humanity, you use less of natural resources to conduct some work. And it can get documented as well.
I will grant you that this is only one lens through which you can look at it. But there are multiple viewpoints, and I think we need more comprehensive discussions on how do we look at it 360 degree on sustainability, because this, we are also increasing more and more use cases of extra compute, extra in the AI leverage, and they all need more compute. However we do bring down, we are still increasing. There's a greenwashing, lot of greenwashing going on in every ecosystem. I'll not blame the technology ecosystem. I personally am a technologist, hardcore. I earn my bread and butter. But I think these are some of the challenges that we as technologists need to put on table and see if we can do something gradually, maybe appropriate leveraging of technology, not being overhyped about, okay, I'll give you all that immersive experience and all that. Do we really need immersiveness? Do we need so much of artificial intelligence? We do need some of this. I think those are the kind of thought process I would like to bring on the table when we discuss 5G at the global forum. Thank you.
Maybe. Yeah, thank you very much. I think very valid points, and I think many of us have taken papers to Working Party 5D that sustainability is one of the areas that should be addressed. But I think the question very clearly has been and is still open, is how do you measure that when you talk sustainability? One point that Victor mentioned was that on a per kilohertz basis or per megahertz basis, power consumption will come down. But when you talk about multiplying, instead of 1 megahertz, you're talking 1 gigahertz, so you're multiplying 1,000 times there. So even if you cut it down by, let's say, 100 times, you're still going up by 10 times, right? Agreed. So, so there is a clear a roadmap as how do you reduce the overall power consumption, how do you reduce the overall energy, and other related things. So sustainability, the UN 30 SDG is clearly a roadmap. But whether, how do you apply that to a 5G vision is something that I think we all need to work and make sure that that is inputted into the 5D process. I welcome all of you. If you have some thoughts, please send it to us and we will format it rightly and bring it to Dr. Hakan and to the management of the 5D, how to address it. But we can't continuously wait for something like that to happen because this time schedule has to be followed. We need to clearly agree on something in the coming meeting. So if we need to do something, we must do it now and do it very quickly. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And,
Sir, I have a question. I'm Dr. Jagdish Shivare, professor and ex-scientist ISRO.
Okay.
Sir, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, sir. As per present studies and research, is there any disadvantage of 6G technology? Then what will be the impact of 6G technology on environmental pollution after its implementation by 2030?
Yeah, I think that's the same point that has been raised about the sustainability. Yes, well noted. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Satyanji?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Satyan Gupta, Secretary General ITU-APT Foundation. First of all, I want to compliment all of you. At least now I know what is 6G, though not fully cleared. But then I have a question also. The question is a sort of personal question, like I'm working on Wi-Fi, and that is my bread and butter. I'm what you call Roji Roti, Professor Hakan. And so,
Masala dosa.
what is the future of Wi-Fi? Or will it have a future, or it is a death nail when we talk about 6G, or when we move to 6G? Wi-Fi will be there, or it will be dead?
So we have a session tomorrow on Wi-Fi, so we'll surely talk about Wi-Fi tomorrow. But if anybody wants to say something, it's open. But I think
I'm here for
we will have a session tomorrow on Wi-Fi. Yeah, we'll keep it for tomorrow because I think we are.
Okay, Bhattaji, coming back to the topic. Bhattaji, coming back to the topic.
Thank you very much. I think we have had a great many questions.
Last one.
Okay, last one, Dr.
I raised the hand first, but I'm coming at the last because everybody kept on jumping. Okay, well, I've heard all the discourse, wonderful presentation by Hakan and everyone. Stuart. Now, the thing is that march of technology cannot be stopped. Okay, we used to work with the tubes and all those, then we worked with the transistors, then FETs and MOSFETs and CMOS, etc. New materials will come, new products will come, new things will come, new experiences will come. So if we say, well, that's why don't we use it, we should not use it, that's a question which is a no question at all. So it's too premature to say what the 6G is going to bring in. At the moment we are talking about the basic senses, touch, we have not touched upon, smell, what other person is thinking about. So all the things are required to be done, it will come, it will be reality. So it's just the beginning of the technology to do about it. So there is no question of questioning it, the things will evolve with the due course.
Yeah, thank you. I think you brought a very important, the topic of haptics, which is one of the research areas.
Can I have a small flag point?
Okay, sir, last question, we are running out of time. Please, sir, go ahead.
I'm a retired DOT employee of telecom fraternity from the days when pole was the main carrier of telecommunication. I remember to have attended one conference in 95 when this mobile services were being launched in the country, and as you say, it's technological march, but I just want to add up, it can be in vision. Have you ever carried out the study, the radiation effect on which is part of SDG health of the society and the public? That time the answer was given, I remember that by a person from ITU background, he said, we are being funded for advancement of technology, not about the impact on health. Having been is almost 30 years in the world, with rising so many illness around SDG part, are we attempting any part how this is going to affect health and how we are going to take care of that? Are we considering not to consider as a part of as a vision document? We as a all matured citizen, should we not think society more than technology and its application only? This is my question. I don't want any answer, but I want to say that experts from Europe and bodies like GSA, are we not, we do our CSR part in terms of financial, some profit all over the world. But is that sufficient enough not to nip in the bud the problems by taking standards which are concurrent to the health issues when the technology is being marched upon? This is my question, and why our vision all along has been silent. In 90s and early 80s, okay, it was being developed, so okay, issues. Now, billions of people are experiencing it, and what are the impact on this? I think we need to talk and discuss about it. And surely, before it becomes too catastrophic, we should think about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a good point, and I think there are a lot of studies that are going on already. ITU-T also has a group which is studying this, and in ITU-D also we are studying this. So there are a number of studies going on, and ICNIREP has very good standards on these issues. Sir, so tomorrow definitely we will have further discussion on this because there is going to be one session, similar session at the end. Yes, tomorrow also we'll be talking about R&D and what needs to be done in India on this 6G topic. So we will clearly have further discussion, and most welcome to raise that tomorrow. I would now like to call upon Mr. Soni, our Joint Secretary General Finance, to propose a vote of thanks, and then we will conclude today's session. Soni ji, over to you.
Before vote of thanks, I would like to announce one very important thing. All the participants who are here, they will stay with us for cocktails and dinner. That will be followed by this. So now I have to start my vote of thanks, and I don't want to come in between cocktail and dinner and you. So on the outset, I am very thankful to this august gathering who patiently and attentively listened to all the sessions throughout the day, a marathon day. I am thankful to Mr. Christopher, wireless advisor to the Government of India, and all the panelists and speakers. Say, Dr. V. Chairman APG from Korea, Colonel Jitendra Singh, who is always very instrumental in WRC preparation activities, Sachin Kumar, AWA, WPC, who is a link between government and industry for all the spectrum-related activities, Dr. Hawken, Director Action and Vice Chair WP5D, who all vividly gave the details for the preparation of the WRC 23. My thanks goes to Mr. Gulab Chand, Wireless Advisor, Mrs. Revati, Joint Wireless Advisor, Mr. Bharat Bhatia, President IFI, for chairing the sessions on roadmap for spectrum and spectrum for 6G. all the speakers and panelists, namely Mr. Parakar, Vice President Qualcomm, who describes all the intricate things in a very simple manner. Mr. S.D. Abbas, Principal Advisor TRI, Colonel Vikram Trivotia, who always speak in a pinpointed and crisp manner. Mr. Puneet Rathore from 5G Forum, Mr. Prakash Murut, Global Head of Spectrum, SURE, Mr. Arun Agrawal, DDG TEC Radio, and Mr. Sendil Devar, 5G India Forum. All had been very articulative in their deliveries, which must have been benefited the audience. Finally, at the closure of the activities, I request you all to assemble tomorrow by 9:15 because it is this time set by the minister. Thank you all. So let us join for the cocktails and dinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on and close this session, I would request Mr. Soni to kindly do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude, a memento to our eminent speakers, the panelists. We present to Shri Arun Agarwal, DDG Radio. Mr. Soni, sir, to kindly do the honors. Soni, sir, we will request you to present one. And we present to Dr. Sendil Devar. Thank you, sir. And first, I would request our panel on the stage for a group photograph. After this group photograph, ladies and gentlemen, we would request all of you to have a group photograph with all our eminent speakers. Maybe we can have 2-3 rows on the stage and below it. The photographers will assist you in that.